All right, everybody. It's been a very long time. So, welcome to Opinionated Collective Sports Talk, college football theme. Last year, when I launched this idea, it was basically as a podcast. Now we're going to be doing this as a video. And to basically do this along with me, my personal favorite person, Justin. How are you today, my fellow college football friend?
Hey y'all, coming at you from South Carolina. So,
The
how
state
everyone
of
is doing?
basically it's basically a richer college football state.
Yeah, I mean we have a couple teams. We got the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. We got the Clemson Tigers.
Hey, you said Cox.
Haha, very funny.
You also have North Carolina not too far up the way.
No, that's actually pretty close. We got UNC Chapel Hill. Want to say the state of Georgia. That's right. That's to us.
You're
We
in one of
got
my favorite
University of
conference
Georgia, the
countries.
Tech, all of it.
You're in one of my favorite regions of the United States, living near a conference that gets way too much hype, the Southeastern Conference.
Oh
Not to say
yeah.
they're not good schools, but
So yeah, about
ESPN
that.
ridiculously overhypes the SEC.
Oh yeah, I so just a quick moment here. I actually went back to college for computer science and I enrolled for a year at the University of Florida and saw the Gators firsthand before the Napier era. So it's an interesting experience, but I can more or less say is was this it pretty much. And it's no different than when I was at a Mac school or when I was at the big house, just different.
Oh, yes, that's right, because you went to school in Michigan,
Actually, originally it was in Ohio, Toledo,
Toledo. Then you went to Eastern Michigan.
which is right
So
next to Michigan down the road. So, yeah.
now let's review a little bit of the bowl season last year. We're going to start with one of our favorite school talking points. We're going to start with Florida Wa State.
Okay. First of all, let's Florida State. Okay. They had an excellent regular season and they had a pretty good postseason. And the only loss was to Georgia, and honestly, it's reasonable because let's be honest, this is Georgia we're talking about, and but the way that things played out was more of a perfect storm than anything else. It's a matter of you got five champions and only four spots. And the way Georgia lost, uh, who did
Georgia
they lose
lost
to?
to a very toward a very eventually good Alabama team in Nick Saban's
Yes.
final season,
Yeah, that
where
they
he
took
just
the fourth
eventually said,
seed.
"I'm too old for this now." So
Yeah, so this is the fourth seed. Yeah.
the
And
problem is historically, Florida State has always been in one of the in one in a very in weak conferences. I do not knock that the ACC is a good conference, but let's look at that
mm,
strength of schedule last year with Florida One State, and let's try to understand who did you really play? Clemson, who was basically rebuilding.
yeah,
Um,
they're rebuilding.
the
Yeah, they didn't have a
University
great
of
season.
Miami, who hasn't been
Which
good
Miami?
for God, how long? Oh yeah, since the 2000s,
Yeah.
since the 2000s and the Thug U teams. Since when we basically the last time Miami was sufficiently good was when you and I were very young.
Facts. Yeah, that. Yeah, yeah, that's
Like,
true.
there's just no way around it.
Yes.
Miami had a lot of good players coming through the 80s, the 90s, and the start of the 2000s. After the first 4 year of the 2000s, when all those good players left for the National Football League, that's when Miami started declining. Especially because they also
Yeah.
got caught cheating by the NCAA. They got the
Mm,
hammer thrown
yep.
down on the program,
Yep.
which at the same time, we were only starting to see what would happen with USC.
That too. Yeah, that too.
And it's funny, between Miami and USC, USC was USC really got the shaft in terms of those sanctions.
Oh, they sure did. I mean, it's just crazy just how punishing they were. But alas, they were. And again, I mean, with Florida State, they did a really good job and they deserve to be up there just like everyone else. It's just not enough spots. And of course, the injury controversy. Um,
So
and
instead of taking it like real good men, this is what they did instead. Wah, wah,
well,
wah. We
well,
went undefeated.
yeah,
Wah.
they did. And it's unfortunate. It's one of those, it had to do with the system and what, and did
You
the
think they
committees
prefer
get
to
it
casually
correct?
take?
My personal opinion, I think they got it correct.
I
Um,
I think they got it correct too, but then the question would be, do you think Michigan was more deserving than Florida State?
Absolutely.
Even though now Michigan is going to suffer because of all the things that Jim Harbaugh did. And then he bolts for the NFL, which is the funniest thing ever.
That is kind of, that's another take for another. And yeah, that's unfortunate of what has been brought to light. It's
Well,
not
the coach
good.
can be
It's not
absolutely
even, it's
awesome.
not good at all. And at the same time, we cannot say that other teams didn't engage as well. Obviously, we all know everyone more or less at some point. But what made Michigan different was they didn't cry about it. In fact, they suspended 50% of the
That's awesome.
games with the head coach. The head coach missed 50% of the games, and the other coach beat Ohio State at Ohio State.
I have a comment that I need to make about Ohio State. Okay. I hate
Let's not
Ohio
say we
State
did.
the way you hate the Thundering Turd.
Oh please, yeah, okay, yes. But let's let's leave it
I
there.
hate Ohio State because ESPN for so many years kissed up to Ohio State like they were the greatest thing since sliced frigging bread.
Oh, I
Okay,
know the
you
history
got
of
the
that though.
best recruits out of Ohio and nationally to come to the school because you had Jim Tressel, who then went on into like an executive kind of a role in the athletic department. And then you had Urban Meyer, who ran a criminal Florida program, basically, who got whipped by Saban on a few occasions at Alabama, basically come to Ohio State. And yet again, Urban Meyer and his criminal enterprise, because he brings in really talented athletes, but they're absolute knuckleheads, continues the winning streak. Now, I do
Oh,
have one little joke to make about Urban Meyer. That man failed epically in the NFL. You there?
I am listening loud and clear.
That man failed so spectacularly. He couldn't. He couldn't convince. He couldn't convince a bunch of older millionaires to buy into his brand of football. Apparently, the guy only works when, apparently, he only works really well with kids going to adulthood, not with a bunch of spoiled millionaires who basically just said, you know what, screw you, bye.
It is what it is.
That had to be the funniest season ever in the 2022 season. I could remember laughing my rear end off. It's like, dude, stay in the booth. Now, we are now at the start of a new era in college football. New era in college football now involves super conferences. Another topic you and I exclusively talked about that we got to talk about today, because my whole thing is this.
So this is really interesting. But let's start with the collapse of the Pac-12.
You mean, are we going to start with basically how everyone decided, instead of regionally sticking with the Pac-12, when we want to go play with the big boys?
Yes. So it's more complicated than just bolting, but it has to do with media rights and lots of botched management. But in short, it was mainly about money, and everybody failed except for Oregon State and Washington State. And just an FYI, I go to Oregon State right now. And they remind me a lot like Toledo, and so they can punch above their weight in terms of the team. But let's contrast.
You got your big brother Oregon in the same state, who basically is like the king of the state.
Sure, I mean that's typical. It's the same with Georgia and Georgia Tech, and you got Florida and Florida State. I mean, it happens all over.
USC and UCLA, Stanford.
You got
and
Clemson, yeah. You got Clemson and University of South Carolina. It happens all the time. But the main thing about this situation is that what happened afterwards. So what happened afterwards is comparing this to Florida State and I believe Clemson as well, is that Oregon State and Washington State, they did not cry. They
No,
put
they
put up the big person britches, and they sat down and figured out how can we move forward, and what has since came out is a scheduling alliance, and now we are looking at a revival of the Pac-12, and there are 4 schools from the Mountain West coming over to the Pac-12, and they only need 2 more. And in fact, if you were to rank as of today, the who is the conferences, you would see the Pac-12 ranked above the ACC. They say.
Right.
So that tells you something.
Funny. Stanford and Cal wanting to go to the ACC made 0 sense unless you're just looking at money.
A lot of these teams bolted for the money. And then, but now let's move on to
money, but at the same time, especially when it comes to basketball, they're going to be traveling a lot more frequently, especially for basketball. Football's just once a week. Basketball's like every
times a week. Yeah.
2-3 times a week. Winter tournaments.
Yeah. This made the winter tournaments. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother ballgame.
This made 0 sense. Now, during the conference realignment, although I sort of didn't understand it at first, I would say this one. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Texas wanting to be in the SEC, while I do respect them for wanting to play larger competition, You're already going into a stacked SEC conference with basically Alabama, Auburn. Then you have Mississippi, Mississippi State, LSU. You already have a stacked conference for those historical Big 12 programs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they playing up. Oh, they definitely are playing up.
They can play
And
up, but the question is, are they going to be as effective in the SEC as they were in the Big 12? In the Big 12, both
that remains to be
Oklahoma
seen.
and Texas for 2 decades could literally win every single game and still
Mhm.
get an at-large bid into the old playoff system.
Yes, yes. It's gonna take an adjustment. And I feel it's gonna be the same for Cal. It's gonna be the same for
Well, Cal
USC
Cleveland, the
and
Pac-12
Oregon and all of them.
will look
It's
like
gonna
an
be a big.
easier conference because there almost isn't that many good schools in the ACC. It was just like, for
Well, yeah.
example, when Boston College and remember when Boston College and University of Miami want to go to the ACC and leave the Big East?
Oh yeah. I remember that. I remember them being in the Big
Oh yeah,
East.
I remember that too. I'm like, guys, you were both successful in the Big East, and you go wah for more money and want to go to the ACC where you have
No.
at least one or two sufficiently other good schools.
Yeah, I look at Marshall as a prime example of the traveling school. I mean,
Marshall, the
they
thundering turd.
that's your line, buddy. But
Marshall, the school that the media gave way too much love back in the 70s for the plane, which is understandable. But
that is unfortunate. But I want to keep this within the timeline. So
yeah,
while I was in Toledo, um, I knew of Marshall personally. Actually, we played him quite a bit for the MAC championship, a couple of times, I believe. And yeah, and before you know it, they moved on to Conference USA, and I I I I'm not sure if they moved one more time, but they eventually landed in the Sun Belt Conference. Why? I do not know why they do this, but it seems like they just kind of travel around looking for the best deal. Um, I don't understand it, but it is what it is. This is kind of how I feel about what happened to what's happening with these conference realignments every so often. Like it's like who's gonna give me the best deal? And I think it hurts I think it hurts the game personally having like a super league because it breaks a lot of barriers down, which is kind of good. I mean, you see some interesting matchups, but then you lose that identity.
let me use an example that ties into it. There was discussion of wanting to do this in Euro football leagues. Like, for example, La Liga had discussions to actually do this, but same
Oh
with
yeah, the Super
England.
League, yeah.
And then guess what happened? The fans rioted. No
Oh,
one
the
in
fans
this country
absolutely
rioted.
rioted.
Nobody did that here. In
No.
Europe, because football over there is a way of life, soon as the fans sniffed it out, they rioted in the streets and then the discussion stopped.
Yep.
Now, why do we accept all this BS nonsense over here in the United States of America?
Because we love watching it, but we don't care about the politics
But
about it
now
because
here's the
but
next
now
thing.
we are.
Here's the next thing to tie in onto that.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically being a bunch of giant wusses by not voicing how we feel because now the networks can get as by continuing to tune
Oh,
in
yeah.
and support it. Guess what we're really telling them? You can
We're
have our
saying
money.
you can have our money, just give us our games. We don't care.
We should be more like Europe and riot in the streets. Then they would
Hmm.
stop this stuff. Then you would not
Grinding in
have
the streets
situations
may be
like this.
extreme, but I would say we should just like not attend games or just attend them in person and not stream them, not consume it. But how would that work? Good question, especially when let's be honest. Comcast, the service providers, and we got ESPN. We got Fox.
ESPN is
We got
a monopoly.
all of them. They all have their exclusive media deal. Now, back to the ACC and the grant of rights, and it's interesting because this is the heart of the issue. And in my humble opinion, I believe that Florida State effectively just does not look good, especially when they came off with Georgia after going, we got miffed, get killed at Georgia at Georgia.
Georgia is just a superior club.
Just 63-3. That's all I'm gonna say. So that's a zero. That's an L. Then then on neutral site in
In
a
the
foreign
United Kingdom,
country, in a foreign country, not in the United Kingdom. Ireland is not the United
oh
Kingdom.
yeah, Ireland.
In a foreign country named Ireland, got beat by Georgia's little brother Tech.
Yeah. You know, I gotta say something because
I'm sorry. And then you lose at Boston
whole,
College to Boston College. And then you lose to Memphis. Four straight losses.
who was the
Georgia
second game they
Tech.
lost to?
Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis.
Memphis. Okay. Do you know which was more pathetic? Do you know which one was the most pathetic of the losses? Memphis.
That I don't understand that one either. And they barely eke out a win. Who did they even play? Cal. They barely
Oh yeah,
beat
they played
Cal.
Cal yesterday.
Yeah, but yeah, they barely beat Cal.
So who should
So
blame at this point for Florida Wasp State? The coach or the
I
play?
the
Who's the
coach has
bigger
been there
wop?
a while.
Who's the bigger
Um,
wop?
mm, in my opinion, I think it's more on the players gelling because you gotta understand.
Yeah, the quarterback last year just got drafted by the New York Jets, and he was also injured.
Yeah. So the way I've seen it is Novell had little choice but to kind of use the portal, tried to put together an elite squad that barely knew each other in the off season, and expect them to play. And I think it's just going to take a while, and I hope those players on the roster today are going to be there tomorrow. Otherwise, it's going to be a bad time. And speaking
Well,
of
your
DJ
favorite quarterback,
Uiagalelei,
unfortunately, I think this is
um,
last season. DJ,
oh, DJ Uiagalelei, yes. So he was at Oregon State, and he did okay. He won some games for us, but but honestly, he's kind of average. He can string together some good plays, but you gotta give him time to throw, and you gotta
he couldn't hack it at Clemson because he had to replace a school like.
yeah. I mean, I give him credit for the getting experience, but that experience isn't should help you, not keep you where you are. That's just my take.
So let's get your thoughts on Nick Saban finally retiring and now going on to College Game Day. I
Oh,
doubt you watch the pregame show, and that's not necessarily, you know, it's that's going to take some getting used to. But
yeah,
I feel like getting him on there was really more of a replacement for Lee Corso, who's 89 and is having a lot of cognitive issues now. Which is, look, I loved watching Lee Corso as a kid when we grew up on College Game Day.
yeah.
But
He was a
now reading
staple.
all the articles about him and how Kirk Herbstreit has been supporting his colleague and friend at 89, I would have said Corso should have just retired last year when there were signs of this. And it looks like bringing in Saban was probably smart at that point.
Yeah, I think that's a good decision. And
I'm going to miss
yeah,
Corso, but at 89 years old,
89 years old, it's about
it's
time.
really time for you to go be with your family for your last.
It's about time. Um, he can still be around. He can still kind of,
Do the
buzz
headgear,
in.
but even the
I say he should be able to kind of just buzz in, maybe remotely. We don't know. But yeah, I think Nick Saban being at College Game Day is a good choice.
They also did a good choice with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee, one of my favorite podcasters,
Oh
who I
yeah,
modeled some of my humor and jokes after, throughout my podcasting
okay,
nowadays, is another one I really enjoy. Good,
okay,
good, someone good and relatable for us to even relate to,
yeah,
because he's in our age group. He's real, he's
yep.
authentic. I think that was another good addition to College Game Day because,
Hmm.
eventually Herbie's going to have to retire.
Yeah, I mean it, time waits for no one.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but
And
yeah,
what,
it's
what, how did you feel when you saw the reports when Saban finally just decided to retire from Alabama? Were you a bit shocked?
no. I say he was smart as hell.
You could tell the game passed him, right?
No, it's not that the game passed him. I think he was smart because he realized the game simply changed. Once, I mean, and he knew everything. He knew change was coming with the whole new format and how things are gonna work, and with nil in the mix. I
Oh well,
mean, and the
well.
portal too. I mean, when you get nil, the portal, and you
Let
have
me
this
say this
playoff.
because when we were kids,
Why? It's just I mean,
when we were kids and
yeah,
they couldn't do anything and the nil wasn't even a thing because the NCAA was clearly taking from the players and
well,
exploiting the players, I would
yeah,
say he was thrilled back at that time because he could lowball everyone. But when nil started becoming popular and then the portal
mm,
as well,
no, and portal.
you could tell he was starting to get pissed.
Well, yeah, oh yeah, he should be upset because all of a sudden, I mean, he lost all of his leverage. Because let's be very honest. Um, let's start no nil for a minute. Let's assume no nil existed just for a moment. Between the first, we have the portal, and that alone pretty much guaranteed a freer movement of players and distribution of talent throughout the game. Then you got yourself the new format now, which is remains to be seen as to what the results are going to be in this new era. And that too, with the portal, means we have a lot more teams going head to head that are going to be more equally talented now. So everything's kind of up for grabs now. There is no one dominant team for sure. Um, and then of course you got No, and No just completely takes that to a whole another level and direction. But even if you didn't have No, the fact that you have the portal and this new format guarantees some matchups that are going to get interesting. let's just take Northern Illinois and Notre Dame. How
Let
did that
me
work?
add this
How
one
about
little let me add
Tech?
this one little moniker because you don't like him and I started out liking him, but now I don't, or now I just think he's a joke. The nil as well as the portal became Deion Sanders' best friend.
Fair enough.
I mean,
That's fair enough.
all
Fair
he had
enough.
to do
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
could build. He Nil allowed him to attract Travis Hunter, the best consensus high school player, to go to an HBCU. Dion Dion was
Yeah.
able to build at an HBCU, which was Jacksonville State, a solid
Jayville.
2 years of solid teams through the portal.
It can be done if you know what you're doing.
Unfortunately, he couldn't duplicate this at Colorado.
Oh yeah, that's it. You gotta understand. I mean, Jayville State is Jayville State Division two or they D? Oh, I think Jayville State just
They
became
were
D
considered
one,
FCS, so
FBS
Division
Division
One
two.
Double
So
A.
they're Div two. I think they just upgraded themselves. I think just this year. I think to D
Now,
one,
I do
but
think Dion isn't necessarily a bad coach, but he's got a lot of knocks with him. Like for example, his two sons followed him from Jacksonville to Colorado, so there's
makes
nepotism.
sense. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Travis Hunter, who's probably one of the best football players in the country, followed him, and that was fine because Hunter wanted to
hmm
be tutored by Dion, and you can't blame him. The
Yeah.
the five biggest mistakes I would agree with that Dion made when going to Colorado, running off the last coach's players. Yeah, I get it. They might not have fit your system, but let's face it, you were in the Big Ten at that point.
Well, no, they're at the Pac-12.
You were in the
And
Pac-12 at that point, and you needed players with at least knowledge of the Pac-12 for your induction season, which you won
yep,
3 games, and that was great. But then you basically shit the bed the rest of the year.
yep.
Yes, I
Now
said
you're in the Big 12, and
now
this
you're
year
in
in
the
the
Big
Big 12.
12, which is Colorado's original conference, and you still suck.
I'm sorry, Colorado. I mean, so Travis, you're doing great. The Sanders team, you're doing all right. The
No,
rest
no,
of
no.
y'all,
Shiloh Sanders,
yeah,
and then Shador.
okay,
Shador's
yes,
not a quarterback.
we know that. But he does make it interesting. But he makes it interesting.
He should just change positions at this point.
To each his own.
I mean, it's so bad. Deion Sanders is not doing the best coaching job. He's even getting killed by Jason Whitlock in the media, who never liked Deion.
Eh. Well, I mean, that comes with the territory, man. You're not liked by everybody.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. And now for the final part of this, we're going to do conference by conference winners, and then we're going to pick our playoff teams conference by conference.
Are you kidding me? Man, you're looking at you're trying to make me an oracle. Man, that's gonna be hard.
It's fun. We don't know if we're going to be right to begin with anyway. Who's your Pac 16? Oh no. Who's
Pack
going
16.
to be your Big 12? Who's going to be your Big 12
Oh God.
collection?
Oh my Big 12. Who's in the Big 12? I don't follow them, actually.
Let's
Oh
have a look
shit.
on.
Let
Hold
me
on.
I gotta look up who's in the Big 12. Um so
Okay, let's
funny.
start with the SEC since that's more regional for you.
I don't know. Let's go to Big 12. I'll just look this up on my phone as to who's there. Okay. So the new Big 12. Okay. Who's gonna be the top pick? given the current data I got. You know what I do like? I do like the Utah Utes. I've seen them play. They're not bad.
Utah would probably be my selection, and I've watched some of their games as well, so I would actually agree
Yeah,
with.
they're expat 12, and they always gave like people a run for their money.
I don't see USC doing that much better in this conference.
USC, they're in the Big Ten, but dude, this is Big 12 we're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about.
it's wrong conference.
I know it's so difficult to decipher. Oh, I see. Since the Cincinnati is doing okay. So University of Central Florida. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Back in my Toledo days, we played these people. Okay, who's next?
Okay, now we're gonna do the Big Ten.
Oh, Big Ten. Oh boy. Okay. Oh.
It's University. My pick for the Big Ten is probably going to be the University of Wisconsin, Madison, or Michigan,
You
or
gotta
Ohio
pick one.
State.
You gotta pick one, dude. Can't play favorites.
University. Let's go, Michigan. Maize and blue.
Hmm. Man, see, I would like. I mean, normally that would be my pick, but oh boy. Um, you know, oh man, if Michigan is off the table, because honestly, Michigan already has lost, and it is entirely probable they can't. They might lose to Ohio State. I know that game well, and it can go either way in any year. Wild card game. Um, you know who I like?
Oh,
I actually like. I actually like Oregon. They look pretty good. They're
Oregon.
undefeated,
I can
but they
actually
haven't.
see that
But they haven't
myself.
done conference play yet. So let's limit it to those who did conference play. So if that's the case, um, actually Washington may not be a bad bet. If Michigan's off the table, Washington looks pretty good.
Okay, I can go with that one. How
I mean,
about
it's
the SEC? Give me your two top picks in the SEC.
oh, we did top two. Oh well, damn, oh well, too late for the Big 12 then. I mean, yeah, actually, yeah, Big 12. Don't matter about Big 12.
Alabama.
Hold on. Oh, who do I like? Well, we don't know about Bama yet because they haven't played anybody. Um,
Yeah, but it's Alabama.
I can't do that. Georgia is always going to be a top pick, but you know what? Considering the data, I like Tennessee. I like those volunteers.
Tennessee. I'm gonna
Like
say
them
Alabama,
volunteers.
but my number two is gonna go to my number two, LSU.
Really, I cannot back that up given how they played. They got lucky AF over South Carolina. They,
what will Florida Wass State's final record be?
but we'll get to that later. What's
They're
next?
they're my
Who's
end
next?
point.
Who's
Let's
who's
see.
who's 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 next? What
Predict
conference?
for me the college football playoffs
Yeah, but we're done with the SEC. Who's next? What's next? What
after the
conference?
SEC. How about the MAC?
Oh, the Mac. Oh my app. Oh my home. Oh my home. Um. Oh man. Uh, Nobody played each other. This is kind of crazy. Wow. So I guess there's no data. Toledo's my alma mater, and they're always a powerhouse. Um, Northern Illinois is interesting, but Eastern Michigan, that's another that I went to Eastern for my master's, and oh my goodness, I saw a play, and they look pretty decent. So I'm gonna go with Toledo and Eastern. Eastern might actually do well this year.
I can get behind that one.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to say something about the Mac, but I love the Mac. The Mac is always a cluster, and it's beautiful. Um, so a little thing about the Mac, you don't know what you're going to get each year or each grouping of years. And it's wonderful because everything is literally up for grabs. And it's wonderful. But so normally you got Toledo and Northern Illinois. Those two are usually pretty much good. Bowling Green comes and goes, and everyone else is kind of in the pits. Ball State kind of comes up in there every so often, the upsetter, but the rest kind of goes to hell. But hey, we got directional Michigan in here. That's my joke of the directional Michigan.
Michigan.
And so you don't know what's gonna happen with the Mac and Buffalo. I have no idea why the hell we gotta have Buffalo. Then again, at one point, University of Central Florida was in here. Heck, Marshall was in here at one point.
All right.
So who's next?
Last but not least,
We still have
who's your
8.
Heisman pick?
What?
Who's your Heisman pick?
Oh gosh, I don't follow that shit.
Don't worry about it. I probably think it's going to be Travis Hunter, who's at least at the finals.
It probably will be. Let's just leave it at that.
All
We
right.
still
Now,
didn't.
final
Okay.
for Florida Wasp State.
Oh yeah, we need to do the ACC. We got to do that one because that one's gonna be a fun one. So I mean, Boston College looks pretty good. Actually, they all look kind of decent. Stanford just doesn't look bad.
Louisville 3-0, BC's 3-0, Virginia's 3-1.
I'm looking at it.
Clemson 2-1. Florida State is 1-3. Okay, my conference pick for Louisville. My conference pick is going to Louisville.
Louisville's probably
2-3.
Louisville and Boston College are going to be our top two. Although I want to say something. Tech is going to be interesting this year. I think they're going to make a mess out of some things. Florida State, I'm sorry, you're not going to have a great season.
Nope, and you're going to fire your coach.
Wait to be seen. Oh, Pitt's in there?
I do not
I forgot Pitt is in the ACC.
Year. If he survives, I will be influenced.
Me too. But then again, we got Napier in Florida.
Why did Florida want to get rid of him already?
Napier? They haven't been doing that well. You know that, right? Billy Napier? They haven't been doing well since he got there.
Florida's always had problems.
Well, that's true. They always have problems.
Anyway, we will see you. This was fun content to make. So hopefully we'll come back in 2 weeks with more.
Sounds great, guys. It's been fun.
All right. See you guys soon.
Signing off.
Signing off.